Okay.
Are you started on there?
We are live.
Fantastic. I still can't see it on. Ah, here
There we
we
are.
go.
Yeah. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hope you've all had a nice, cozy con so far. Um, I'm Jonas. This is my co-host, Peahead. Nice
Hello,
to, uh,
everybody.
nice to see you. Um, for those who don't know me, a very brief introduction. I've been an artist in fandom for about 20 years. I work on various comic project production teams. I've also helped make a game or two. Um, and I have a passion for teaching art related stuff. Uh, this is my co host, Peahead. If you'd like to say a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jonas. This is Peahead Incorporated. My background is I actually work with young people in who Hi Azure P Jonas. I work with young people trying to with special educational needs. So a lot of times that's mental health, and I help them learn digital literacy. So, how to interact in a digital environment. So, I come from a very different background. My background is kind of in realism and real media. So, it's not uncommon to see me doing kind of oil paintings. Big surprise, I have a lot of kind of anime influence in my work. And I'm gonna be Twitch streaming more and more, doing kind of mostly drawing stuff, maybe a little bit of kind of um, really bad gaming. If you're into watching your mother game, very much the big vibe. People who don't kind of take themselves too seriously. And I'm going to be opening up for commissions as well this year, which I'm really excited to do. I've been the first time I ever streamed was last time in CozyCon, and I've never met a nicer, more accepting group of people as in this community. These incredible folks here. So you guys really make an incredible job.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. Brief word about real media. I, I have tremendous respect for anyone who can wrangle it because for me, it's just, it's just uncontrollable. It's chaotic. I have tried several times through the past few decades to just, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it happen. This is it. I'm going to go get some, acrylic paints and it's going to happen.
But saying that, it's I look at Jonas's artwork and I go, oh, Jonas, how do I do this? How?
Oh,
Because and this is kind of the idea behind this is we want to help people take their characters to the next level.
yeah.
When you see incredible artists and you see, oh, why can't I do that? What am I missing? What is my kind of fundamental learning that I just can't get up to that? Um, a lot of that is story driven design,
Yeah.
and Jonas will tell you about
Yeah.
that.
And it one of the things that teachers especially strive to do is bridge the gap between the idea and the application. And
Mm.
that has been one of the reasons I'm so passionate about that is because for me it has been a struggle. I'm really very much an idea guy. Like I really live in like, I was one of those head in the clouds kind of kids, and bringing that into the practical realm so that I could pay rent with it has been a really interesting, difficult journey. um, and now that now that I've got some of that behind me, some of that under my belt, I feel like the important thing now is to try and impart it to younger, inexperienced artists so that they don't feel as intimidated. Because I see a lot of that.
Yes,
I see.
I think that's a big thing. This is about that taking down the intimidation.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah.
Exactly.
So let's jump
Yeah,
into story-driven design. I'm going to move on to the next slide, slide number 2.
sounds great.
And we are going to talk about how to show and not tell your audience.
Yes.
So, what this has to be really is kind of like a conscious process. When you start out as an artist, it's kind of subconscious. It all just sort of happens because you're not really thinking about things like form and
Mm.
and color and elements when you're just beginning. People always start out with the visceral process, the flow of consciousness stuff. But
Mm.
if you really want to harness this, you have to be aware of it both when you're planning something and when you actually start drawing it. Um, and this is very much true with character design. Um, you can take.
And I think
Go ahead.
it's about, sorry, Jonas, it's about kind of just remembering these really core elements, and we broke them down here for you, um, in this kind of real basic to remember FPEE. So if you can remember how to FPEE, you can remember how to take yourself to the next
There you
level.
go.
So FPP or PE, coming from Peahead, of course. Sorry. And you're absolutely right. A lot of times, these are really basic sounding things, but they're really core to understanding, um, taking artwork to that next level and showing and not telling. Sorry, go
Mm-hmm.
ahead, Jonas.
Um, so the entire, basically, the what we're going to be doing is playing with these elements using the kind of the sample character and then taking it in different directions just to demonstrate the many ways you could, the many uh, different choices you could make to convey almost an entire narrative through just a single character, or like a single character
Hmm.
in the way they look, or the single character in the way they interact with their environment. Um, you can, with these kinds of decisions, you can redesign the character to fit any number of roles without losing the essentials of their identity.
Hmm.
Um, you know, if with the conscious understanding of how the story translates to the experience, to the appearance.
Mm.
Um,
And again, I think, sorry, Jonas, I think it's really important when you have, especially if you're doing commission work, you're looking for people who, to get under the skin of that character and really understand them on a visceral level. And that's what this allows you, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah, and it's interesting because I have had situations where I'll design a character. This sort of plays to the experience. I'll
Mm.
take the model sheet of a given character and do my best to render it. And of course, I have my own style. Um, I have a style that translates in my own work. Like very often, like you can kind of see the default head shape I'm using, which is sort of like rounded eyes, kind of a vaguely sort of
Mm.
squared off head shape. Friendly features. I'm just drawing my own character. I'm drawing Jonas. Um,
It's so wonderful. I just want to join in on that. I mean, what makes, I think, Jonas's artwork really stand out. This is from an external looking in, is you can see that there's a lot of influence there. You see traditional, very very traditional artwork. We were just talking about something that most people our age don't even know the cartoon. And then you see this very very modern elements, and and it's put together in a very kind of mature way. Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Um, but one complaint I got a lot early on, a complaint that I had no idea how to deal with, is there's just something off about it. I don't know
Right.
what it is, but it doesn't look right. And sometimes that's anatomical issues, like the posture will be weird, or the proportions will be changed. But sometimes
Mm,
it was really about the choices I was making with the character. Like maybe the
mm,
proportions weren't quite right. Maybe there was like something off about the face. It was a subtler thing than the obvious design elements, and
mm,
they weren't consciously aware of it. They knew it was wrong. They knew that there was something off about it, but they couldn't put their finger on it. And that
mm,
happens. That is a phenomenon that happens all over the place. The greatest animators, all the big ones, the ones like Chuck Jones, the Nine Old Men, they, uh,
yes.
um,
OG.
yeah, they absolutely consciously played with all that stuff in in
Mm,
the design phase, not even getting to the animation phase, just in the beginning.
absolutely. It's something inertly in the character
Yeah,
design itself.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's start with form. I'm going to go to the. Well, I'm going to stay on slide two. Form is the core principle, and form starts with
Mm,
basic shapes. Um, you can take the essential concept of a character and give them very different feelings, very different kind of attitudes just using basic shapes, just using
Absolutely.
squares, circles, and triangles.
And
You
we'll go deeper into these as we go. We're just kind of giving you an idea of what we mean by that.
Yeah, yeah. You
Yeah.
immediately have a sense, like if you have a character composed entirely of spheroid shapes, you immediately have this sense of friendliness.
Mm.
This sort of accessibility. They're kind of roly poly. They're fun. Think
I'm thinking
like,
Big Hero 6
yeah,
vibes.
Baymax,
Yeah.
exactly. Baymax is a
Mm.
great example of that. It's like Baymax is an interesting one because he doesn't quite have like a face. His face
Mm.
is very abstract, almost iconic because it's just
But I think again that just should show it even more. You
yeah.
don't need a lot of information
hmm
on that
Yeah.
with if you're following these principles really well.
hmm But at the same time, it doesn't matter because he's just this large, friendly form. He doesn't even really have
Mm.
like feet. He doesn't have any body features. Anyway, he
Mm.
looks like a balloon. But it's enough. The shape of him completely conveys just how accessible he is. He's instantly inspires trust. If you'd
Mm.
made him, spiky or angular, it wouldn't feel the same way. Um,
And he wouldn't look like, trustworthy as well. Just
right.
to give you an ETA, we're kind of at about 3 minutes left on this
Oh,
slide.
okay, okay, okay.
Mhm.
I should probably. Anyway, but yeah, square characters will give a sense of sturdiness. Kind of like neutrality, friendliness. Like well, not like sort of like a building. You think of a building, you think of a
A
wall.
trustworthiness. I
Right. Yeah.
think you have like, a
Yeah.
paladin. Yeah.
Triangle characters, have the vague feeling. Well, not always, but often will have the vague
Mm.
feeling of kind of like aggression or maybe perhaps a little more
Mm.
dangerous, something, an object that you need to be a little more wary about. Very often
Mm.
you'll see those kinds of angles in villain characters like Scar from The Lion King or Jafar from Aladdin.
Oh
Andreas
yeah.
Andreas Deha designed both of those. He's really good at that kind of look. Um, and again, these are not universally true, but you can see how
Mm.
just subconsciously the principles can be conveyed just in the simplest of forms. Um, Posture. How do they stand when no one's looking? How do they
Mm.
stand when someone else is watching? Like there's the
And
whole
who is
yeah
watching?
when yeah
Yeah.
when who's watching, there's the up, there's a very simple like upright kind of stance. There's the cowardly scheming kind of stance, or sneaking. There's an obvious fearful startled stance. And
Fantastic.
you know when characters react, it doesn't just tell you how they react, it tells you how obvious their reaction is. If it's on the surface, if it's something subtle, if they startle immediately at anything, think of like Shaggy from Scooby Doo. He'll jump at anything,
Mm.
and even when he's not, when he's just walking, he has this kind of shambling kind of gait. It tells you everything you need to know about him in just a walk cycle. I mean, not everything,
Absolutely.
but a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Shall we go on? We have about 50 seconds left on this slide.
oh, it goes so fast. Yeah.
We'll
Emotion.
get more into these as we go.
Yeah.
So emotion and environment, and
Right.
just kind of how those, emotionally, how do you convey the emotion of the character? And
Yeah.
you can actually show that juxtaposition with the one who's watching,
Yeah.
with the watcher, and with the environment, or how they work alongside that
Yeah.
environment.
And it's like, do they get frightened of their own shadow? Do they get frightened of a scary looking
Mm,
tree? Do they get frightened of a little bug? It's like all these different facets can conspire to kind of create the character. Um,
mm,
so moving on to slide number 3,
sounds fantastic.
we have this very quick sketch of a squirrel, just a little woodland creature squirrel that I did. Peahead provided her amazing interpretation up there in the upper left corner. Took this essential squirrel concept, made her kind of vivacious, kind of, you know.
Yeah, you can see where my a lot of my artwork goes.
No,
But
it's great
yeah.
though. I love it. I love
Oh,
it. It's
bless you. Thank you.
um, so that's one interpretation where the essential concept. I mean, it would be a very different. if you happen across a cute little woodland creature,
Mm.
you'd think, oh, adorable, and then, oh, what if it was, a lovely squirrel lady? You would
Yeah, yeah.
immediately have a different kind of reaction. And then again, it would also like,
Sorry, I just have to bring up what Mifek said. Mifek said, vivacious is a $5 word.
and another thing just to think about is, like let's say for a moment that the squirrel lady was someone you encountered, rather than your
Mm.
character. It would make a big difference, if this is, if you're meeting this
That is
character.
really essentially her shape. That's fabulous.
Thanks.
Fantastic.
It would make, again, another thing to think about is it would make a difference if, she's your character's size, or she looks
Mm.
like that and she's,
Tiny.
5 inches tall.
Yeah.
um, but
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And this character that Jonas came up with, it was literally within about 30 seconds. So, it doesn't require a lot, to get a character down, but you can see even just there. I
mhm.
love that. That kind of like, is it a wolf whistle? Is it is it a chat? Um, the you can get these through these concepts through with very minimal effort. A
Yeah.
wooga. Talking about old school.
um, but
Brilliant.
thank you.
Should we go to the next slide and then
Yeah,
cover what we've
let's
done? So we're a bit early, so I'll give the other slides a few more minutes
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. So,
Fantastic.
form. What is their overall shape? So
Yeah.
let's take the squirrel. I'm gonna start with like the, just the basic variant that I've gotten. So let's do a round, a deliberately rotund squirrel, you know.
Rotund, another five letter or $5 word.
Right. I'm just using
Oh, I
like
love it.
all circles to come up with this guy. You see a lot of this
Beautiful.
in like I think I already mentioned like Winnie the Pooh,
Mm.
especially with Disney cartoons.
Kind, warm,
Right.
loving
Yeah.
characters.
He uses many yeah, yeah, sort of like there's this, there's a feeling of like what's the word? Like neoteny,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
that's
You can trust me.
yeah.
You can trust me.
I'll write that out in case. Yeah, basically it means like having sort of infant-like features. Let me pull it up here. I'll just paste it right into my document. A Someone who was very good at that sort of thing, mid
Mm.
20th century animator, um, was Preston Blair. Absolutely outstanding. I'm going to pull up his work. Absolutely outstanding animator from back in the day. Worked at I think Disney and a couple other studios.
Mm.
He was just he knew all about this stuff. You can see exactly the kind of proportions that are at
Oh,
play here.
yes. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Very often these kinds of characters are no more than 2.5 heads tall. This is,
Mm.
it's like Flower from Bambi and so on.
Yes.
And and you can see that they're all circles. They're all circles. Like Porky Pig. Um, just really you know
And the other thing about form is, as we were talking about with, like, soft or angled, but we're also talking about a gestural line. I know Sixel's been doing this in their incredible gesture and speed drawing, is that, just that kind of, if you notice, we've got a character that's kind of, Jonas has made this beautiful kind of S curve
oh
on that little guy in the corner there, and the same thing actually on, if I were to just
yeah,
take
actually
this off. Go ahead,
let me
sorry.
I'll highlight the gesture
Yeah,
basically.
fantastic.
One note about the gesture that I would actually mention is that
Mm.
it doesn't necessarily have to follow the contours of the character. Um,
No, no.
this is something covered by Stan Prokopenko over at Proko.com very well
Oh,
because
he's brilliant.
he
He's really
is.
brilliant,
Oh
yeah.
my God, I've watched like most of his videos.
Mm,
But
mm,
one of the early ones he goes over is gesture. Gestural lines are kind of about conveying the inner motion of
mm.
a grouped, gestalt, another $5 of objects, where it doesn't like people are very tempted to make the gesture about the contour, and sometimes it can be like sometimes it'll follow the spine, um, in a body, but more often it will be movement through the core, and it won't have any corresponding lines on the surface. So in this case, with my rotund, friendly squirrel pal, it's kind of you can see it's kind of in the middle. It's kind of
Mm.
like the gestures sort of travel through the limbs and inform the overall movement of the forms, but don't specifically correspond to anything. I mean that this is kind of the spinal column right here, but not really. It could just is. It depends a lot on the posture. If I was going
Mm.
to,
And again, posture is so important in form as well. And
yeah,
we'll talk a little bit more about posture later,
yeah,
but you know.
yeah, yeah. So, like if I was going to draw the round squirrel moving, like down the ground. Oh no, he lost. He lost his acorn.
Nothing
Um,
worse.
indeed. Um, but anyway, that's the round friendly character. So let's go over to
Mm.
let's try and make the squirrel angular now. Let's make it. Actually, no. Let's go with square. We're going to do the square squirrel because this is like the one thing you often see with the really squared off designs is the heavy, like the bodyguard. So,
Mm.
here's the
Absolutely.
here's the square squirrel.
Immovable.
He's not
He's
amused.
hench.
you know, he
I love it.
he's
I love it.
he's standing at the door to the tree and he's like, "You ain't getting past me. No way, no how." Um
And his family's from Rhode Island.
yes. Um
Oh, it's brilliant. And what's interesting as well is obviously when you think of squirrel, you don't think of somebody who'd
right.
be, very, very sturdy, very, very strong. But of course, if you have, a characters that are all squirrels, you're
Mhm.
going to have to show, very
Right.
distinctiveness between them.
Yeah, yeah. If you have an
Mm,
ensemble where all the characters are the same or similar species, you're inevitably going to run into that situation where the way you distinguish them becomes about the shape
mm,
language and the posture too.
mm.
I could.
Sorry. Mefex just said an incredible explanation of this rotund, vivacious gestalt squirrel. Sorry, sorry, Jonas. I had to interrupt for that. Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. Um, Now, even though the default pose is, I drew for this guy, it's very static, very upright. You can play with that and still retain the essential quality of of this kind of character. Like if I'm going to make him like if I'm going to give him kind of this like wrestling sort of sumo pose where there's still the
Mm,
square energy very much. He still
mm,
feels
mm,
like a block in your way, but he's dynamic. He's
mm.
and this is and this can create a very specific effect because now it's like okay, this is a large dangerous thing that's going to come at you.
Grunge.
It's like okay, this feels like a boulder, like rolling towards you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So
And
next,
it conveys motion. It conveys
yeah,
motion as well.
yeah.
Mm,
So now we're gonna go full villain with the
yep.
squirrel and
And that will give us about 3 minutes left on this slide,
okay,
just so you know, Jonas.
make him a triangle. I don't know if I can make him completely triangular, but I can get pretty, you know, you can get pretty nice and menacing. Maybe give him some sharp teeth, because
No one messes with the boulder. Absolutely, potato. Absolutely.
So, this again, you see this kind of thing with villains a lot. Not, you
Mm.
can have angular heroes. You can have, like, if you look at Disney's Tarzan, he's really got a lot of like
Oh, for
kind of
sure.
pinched forms. That's an interesting one because he's a combination of like round and angular elements.
Mm.
And they all move in this incredibly dynamic fashion. He leaps around through the trees. Um, but anyway, I think y'all get the idea. You can also combine these and play with them. You can have a character that has like
Mm.
some block, like with Tarzan or like Popeye. Popeye is another good example. He's got those weird
Oh, for
sort of
sure.
bulbous kind of forearms, but a round head, a round nose, and even a round jaw. So you get,
Mm.
it's kind of like you get this sort of mixed effect. Um,
And it really conveys his character really well as well.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
he's the good guy, and another thing, actually, you know, on this actual slide, we have Jonas's beautiful, you know, wolf over here, who's he looks, you know, he looks menacing, but there's something kind of, I
Hmm.
want to kind of get to know him. I want to sit next to him at a party, kind
Yeah,
of vibe.
yeah.
Yeah.
I because yeah, and the actual character reference has the form. That's essentially the unchanged form. But I thought, okay, if I'm going to give him an attitude, it has to be conveyed through the posture, and it has to be
Mm.
like he's, I thought, okay, he has an eye patch. Let's
Mm.
build on that. Let's make him give him sort of this like spy vibe, like ha, ready for action. And that grew entirely. That was, with the wingets. That was a winged commission. The I deliberately make it kind of unprompted. Like I have them submit the character, but not a lot
Mm.
of like pose information other than the basic attitude because I want to see. It's a challenge to myself to see if I can really punch that up the way like an animator would. Um,
And that's, I mean, that's one of the best challenges to give yourself if you're really trying to kind of go to that next level, is do something with very little information.
mhm, mhm. And it's important. I mean, sometimes commissioners have specific constraints because they have
Mm.
expectations, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, I prefer a little more freedom, but I recognize as an artist that you don't always get that luxury. People are paying you to do ultimately what they want. Which is
Mm.
okay. You just what you do is you sit. I've learned to sell myself as an artist who can go beyond those expectations and impress them sometimes.
Yeah, you always do. You always do. It's basically next slide time,
Oh,
Jonas.
yeah. So let's talk about silhouette for a minute. Um, Silhouette is an interesting thing, and this is another thing where it can be something that isn't obvious about what's
Mm.
wrong with it. Let me draw the basic outline of the squirrel.
Now, while
Oh,
you're drawing that, I'm just going to bring up this point that it's at the very top. It's how do they stand when no one's looking
oh yeah, yeah.
versus how are they standing now? Always kind of ask yourself that question. What's different? What's different about this picture of this character versus another picture of this character?
Like, yeah. So let's say for a minute that someone's looking at the squirrel. What does the squirrel do? The squirrel immediately clutches the acorn defensively, like, no, it's mine. Maybe curling the tail up. Um, Now, okay,
Like,
so you immediately know that like they're very protective of their acorn.
mm,
Now you could go two different directions with this. Let's say when the offending party leaves, does the character go, whew, like, yeah, I'm so glad to, like do the whole scrat thing and be like,
mm,
I'm so glad to have my acorn, you know, um, or does the character maybe was the bravado all just like, was it just for fun? Do they toss the acorn? Like, I don't actually care about that. You
mm.
know, I just wanted to impress them. Like, okay, whatever. Or does the character continue to, does the character continue to be nervous as though like, could there be more interlopers around wanting to
Mm.
steal the acorn? So we have three different, possibilities here, conveyed only through posture. Is the,
And what's great about that, especially if it's a commission, you might not be very familiar with that character. Doing a pose like that kind of lets you think, this is a different outcome pose, shows that dynamism, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Um, but, we've basically got, object of affection, indifference, and
Mm.
paranoia.
I have to bring up Mifix's comment. The acorn was a metaphor for the approval that I saw in life, and I aim to be an acorn interloper in life. I think we all aim for those things.
Well said.
Fantastic, fantastic. And something that is incredible about, because he's not going to say it about himself, is Jonas is in the slide we have this outline, this strong silhouette of this character that he did that is just I'm so taken with this, and I took it down, this picture, and I took away all the information and just left, the shadow, the
Oh,
basic silhouette of it.
yeah.
And you can see that there's a bikini top coming off.
Mm.
We know that this character is quite femme. We know that this is kind of something's gonna, again, it's what Jonas got in that beautiful illustration just there. It's that kind of dynamic pose. It's that dynamic movement. Something's happening here. There's a story that's about to
Yeah.
unfold.
Mm.
Sorry.
Yeah, and doing strong silhouettes is tricky because let me take these
Mm,
poses right here and just draw like a black outline over them. Hold on a second, let me get my tool. There we go. So I'm gonna just like I'm gonna do this. Boop. You know, it's like I could even strengthen these ones that I just did somewhat because one of the rules is
mm,
if you can tell what's happening um, with only the shadow,
mm,
or at least have a sense for what's happening, then you're in good shape. You're doing a good
mm,
pose. And if you can't, you might need to reevaluate it. Like I feel good about some of these. Like
mm,
the paranoid one, yeah, you can tell the exact, the indifference one, you can more or less you can get a sense for what's happening. The hug one, not so much. Like I could probably work this up. Let me
mm.
like you get a general sense for what's happening, but you can't really tell that the character's holding the acorn lovingly. So let's
Mm,
take
mm.
that concept for a minute and see if I can strengthen the silhouette. Boop,
And it's
boop.
and it's a really good thing to do, is to actually go and do what Jonas just did, in art schools, and in professional artists. That's something they do quite often.
Mhm.
Is they will look at kind of, they'll actually do that. They'll block that out and think about that before really anything else kind of in the character, and especially if you're doing it with multiple characters, right, Jonas?
Mhm. Yeah, it's really important because the silhouettes also work as a group.
Mm,
When you have when you look at like cast pictures, a grouping of characters and like in a pitch for an animated series, it's very important that they all kind of bounce off of each other just as much as they,
mm,
exist as units. So you can see basically what I did here, just really quick, was strengthen the silhouette
mm,
by, it's still what you might think of as like an affectionate kind of posture. You can still tell that the squirrel is valuing its acorn, but now you can
mm,
see that it's holding it out. This,
mm.
think about like Rafiki holding up Simba at the
Mm.
beginning of The
And,
Lion
and
King.
that what's great about that is you actually add into that idea of dynamic angles, which is something we have on there. I have my
Yeah,
character kind of falling down through space.
yeah,
Absolutely, that looking up.
yeah,
You as a viewer are also made to look up at this acorn, conveying the importance that it holds from the second pose.
yeah. And I really like the silhouette on the squirrel lady
Mm.
because it definitely there's
Oh,
definitely
thank you.
an energy to it. There's definitely an immediate feeling of like it's really got kind of this nice like dynamism happening.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
think I think thank you so much. I think that's one of the biggest things that I see young artists, not attempting or being frightened about using is, angles and poses. And if you ever, get a chance, Jonas's, his cozy con that he did last year was a great explanation of that as well. But you can use, Clip Studio Paint has the 3D characters. Just model it on top of that,
Hmm.
use that, move it around.
If we have time, actually, I can actually demo a little bit of that because I can just pull up one of the 3D models. But let me.
Yeah,
I'll wait until.
we have about 3.5 minutes left on this slide. So
Okay, yeah. Let's just get through. Let's see. We should cover line weight a little bit. So line weight.
yeah, line
Yeah.
weight.
I'll just quickly touch on that because line weight is
Mm,
something I really love, and it isn't
yeah.
always something that is in play in
Mm.
modern styles, which is fine. There's lots of different ways to do it. Um,
It's
essentially,
interesting with the line of, like, flash animation. You're absolutely right. I think it has kind of dropped off a bit, hasn't it?
yeah, yeah, and it comes and goes.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that is perennial. And some
Mm,
people may find like if you have extremely light lines, it emphasizes the forms more. And maybe
Mm,
that's what you want. Maybe that's how the kind of energy you want to provide. But if you emphasize the lines more, it becomes its own language, its own visual language.
mm,
And again, this was more of a thing in like the ink and paint era, because
mm.
a lot of the strong line language would come from traditional artists who would brush ink comics, like Stan Lee, that whole
Yes.
generation, and
Use a lot of pen and nib work
yeah,
and then come through, like you say, and brush afterwards
yeah,
just to
and
accentuate.
for one thing, it helps with like light and shadow, but also beyond that,
Mm,
it can give an energy to the character
mm,
that you wouldn't see otherwise.
mm,
Um, you can, some, in manga, sometimes they'll use really like busy lines to indicate energy, like
mm,
this kind of thing, kind of chaotic, like the lines are almost shaking. Um,
mm,
you also see that a little bit in the West. Heavy. You look at artists like Bernie Wright's and where, like look up Bernie Wright's work on like Swamp Thing, where there's these deep shadows, or like Mike Mignola,
mm.
where the,
Or one of my favorites that I always think about is Sin City.
yeah,
Sin
oh
City
yeah,
does that
yeah,
really,
Frank,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, Cincinnati definitely. But I mean, I'm basically drawing like Batman here.
Mm.
The
If you ever want to really practice your art, your line work, look for somebody who does comic work. That comic genre is very, very heavily engrossed in that, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
beautiful.
So now here's the squirrel thing on top of Batman. Um,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, there's this could be a whole other topic. I could get into this, but like,
Mm.
um, the line stuff and the silhouette stuff actually kind of play into each other
Oh,
because and I know we need to move on, but
yeah. It just beeped at me. Sorry.
right, I'm almost done. But like,
No, it's fine.
in many ways, if you think of line and silhouette as extensions of just design of
Mm.
the same design styles, positive and negative space, they become one element. You can have lines
Mm.
that are, you thicken up a line enough and it becomes like a piece of, it becomes an element. But that's I could go on about that for hours just on that topic. Let's move on
Mm.
to the next.
But it's so important, and again, that it is really important to understand that.
Right. So, how do they show their emotion? How does the character convey what's what would be a good emotion to try a lot of permutations
And
on?
this is notice it's not just what are they feeling or what are they, it's how are they expressing
Right.
that,
Yeah.
because a character that has, who's naturally really happy go lucky,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden, and I'll say this as a, we both absolutely worship this artist, Caitlin Vilbrandt does this beautifully, in Tamberlane, where you'll have a lot of these happy, lovely, innocent characters who feel deep dark emotions. That's a very push and pull thing that you have to show. And you can use these elements, posture, large facial expressions, but you can change that with a micro gesture or a
Yeah.
micro expression or their posture.
So I've got
Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
so I've got the squirrel kind of reacting a couple of different ways here to in surprise and perhaps horror. Um, maybe they had a little more time to to prepare themselves for this, maybe not, but like you've got like the wild take where it's like I mean classic animators like Tex Avery would actually have the eyeballs
Yeah.
popping out, stuff like that.
Yes.
Um,
Oh, God.
you have like the more restrained reaction where it's like ugh, you know
Mm,
and then you've got the the trying to hide it where it's like okay, okay, sure,
mm.
why not.
Because
uh,
the same emotion is in all three of these. It's
yeah,
just a very different interaction
yeah.
with the environment and the internal, the internal protagonist.
I tend to kind of go completely ham in my own expressions.
Really? Really?
Yeah, it's just sort of like it's it's a product of like upbringing and influences. Like back in the day, you had
Camilla likes the last guy. Sorry.
um it's a product of just watching all those absurd 80s and 90s cartoons where
Mm.
there's nothing subtle about it whatsoever. It's just like "Rah!" like
Yeah.
Ren and Stimpy kind of stuff. Like that was just
Yes.
that was really big in that era.
Mm,
I felt
mm.
like there was a whole generation of animators just flexing their, their muscles a little bit, just doing these absurd takes.
Oh,
Anyway,
for sure. But when you have something like, The Legend of Korra, you can't have that all the time. You have more subtle stories going through
right.
with more nuanced characters.
So, let's talk about micro gestures for a minute. Like here, I've got the squirrel just sort of gently holding the acorn. But what if I changed it so that the squirrel was gripping it? Like there's the face. The face is kind of mild, but they're just grabbing, clutching it for, holding on for dear life. It's like, okay, that's a slightly different story. Um,
Absolutely. And I think that reminds me of, that I'm going to just guess before you even say anything.
mm,
This is the character saying, "I want to give it to you, but I don't really."
right, right. Um, so
Grip.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like you can have, and this is difficult to convey sometimes because you don't always
Oh, for
have the
sure.
the room to do that. But you can use this to indicate deception.
Mm,
There's a book called by Joe Navarro called "What Everybody Is Saying." It's not actually an art book. It's actually he's like
mm,
a former FBI agent, and he talks about
yes.
using things like micro gestures and micro expressions to determine if someone is telling the truth or not. And I highly recommend it. It's an interesting read, but you'll get that sometimes where like characters, not just people, I should say, people and characters,
Mm,
can deceive. Like their face is saying one
mm.
thing, but maybe their hands are saying something else. Are their hands in their pockets? Are they fidgeting with something like the hem of their shirt? Are they preening? Um,
Oh, I have to interrupt you. We've got a raid of a party of three. Thank you very much for coming in, Mia Moore.
oh,
Yay, very
hello.
excited. And
Um,
and and, and with that really quick before
yeah.
I'm just going to say, like, when you have if you're looking for finding nuanced emotions,
Mm-hmm.
etc., if you have a film or with characters, incredible actors and actresses, I recommend, going through your favorite films, pausing, and then taking the character, looking at the facial expressions, duplicating that in your own character, duplicate it in your own work, and it will give you kind of, something that's a bit more nuanced.
um, So just a brief word about micro expressions. What this is, and this is another thing where it's really hard to like learn how to render it. It's like little twitches
Exactly.
in the face, in the facial muscles, like not
Mm,
complete expressions, but like they're pulling in different ways. Can tell you
mm.
more about what's going on in their head. Um, like
It's harder to find these references. That's why I brought up,
yeah,
watching these films.
yeah,
Absolutely. That's beautiful.
yeah,
That's
and
beautifully rendered.
thank you. And you really have to like. Sometimes it helps to just like look at scenes in movies, scenes you love, and just
Mm,
focus only on the characters' faces in different situations because good actors
mm.
can really convey a lot with just a lot of little small facial muscle changes.
And
Um,
talented artist as well.
thank you.
Jonas.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a hack. But no, 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 no.
Ah.
How are we
And
on?
I think that plays into, facial design as well. And can you kind of explain what is facial design and how does it get affected by micro and macro aggressions?
Facial design is kind of a
Sorry, not
subset.
aggressions, expressions.
Facial design is kind of a subset of the general shape language stuff. Like facial expressions will play differently on different proportions of features. Like there
Mm,
are characters where if a character has big eyes, big Bambi eyes, like that, um,
mm,
you're gonna feel differently when they're sad versus a character that has. I mean, you'll still feel like if it's a character that you don't empathize with, one that plays a different kind of role, you'll still
mm.
feel you'll still feel bad when they're sad, but you won't feel the same kind of pity. When a character like
Absolutely.
this is upset at you, you're gonna feel a lot worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody knows that who's ever owned a cat.
Yeah. um, but yeah, basically, and and again, this is one of those You want to know a really good example? Let me pull up a really good example of how you can play with this and have weird contrasts happening. Have any of
Mm.
you seen Cats Don't Dance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
So,
and just to let you know, we're about 2 minutes in.
okay, I'll wrap it up soon. But like,
No, no, no. That's here about Cats Don't Dance. It's brilliant.
um, the villain character Darla Dimple, she's an obvious riff on Shirley Temple, who is a real actress who kind of looked this way. But like, um, she's a great character because she has you can see she has that rounded cute thing going on in terms of design, but she's also, she's the villain, she's subtly malevolent, so
Mm,
there's something a little bit off about her face. I don't mean like it looks wrong. What I mean is like there's
mm,
the shape of it very subtly indicates that okay, she's cute, but she's really not all that cute. She's
mm.
kind of,
There's something
yeah.
dissettling about the
Mm-hmm.
whole
Yeah.
thing.
Well, like her eyes are a little bit further apart than the default cute
Mm,
proportions, and there's something kind of pinched about like her lines. They all kind of converge on her nose. There's this vague
mm,
feeling when she's being cute. You can tell it's not really sincere. She's trying,
absolutely.
like in this picture, she's trying to be, oh, look at me, I'm the starlet, and like
Mm,
it's not really a sincere smile. And anyway, you can see her eyes are kind of like they're kind of
mm.
like staring.
Vapid. Yeah.
So, this is something where you can absolutely play with this kind of thing in your work. You
Mm.
can, you can,
And even going back to what we were talking about before, there's a slight like point in that eye.
yeah.
There's slight pointedness through
Mm-hmm.
this roundness that we
Mm-hmm.
notice.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
We
Um,
need to recast Jonas as Darla Dimple. Oh my god. Sorry, Jonas.
nice. Anyway, let's continue. Let's push on. Environment. How do they react to their environment? Let me clear off my layers here.
You're doing great on keeping on time. Well done, Jonas.
Thank you. You are a tremendous help because normally I'm not so good with that. If you look at if you look at the VOD of my last CozyCon panel, you'll notice I kind of I went through everything a bit quickly just because I
But the thing is you have so much knowledge and you have such an incredible way of explaining it. The thing is, you want to explain the world,
yeah, yeah.
but that's okay. So, environment, we talk about how they react to their environment. Now, Jonas,
Hmm?
are we talking about a setting? Are we talking about background drawing here?
Yes, although it doesn't necessarily have to be an entire environment. People think of
Mm,
environments as these like complete things, but it can be as much as a single object. It can even be nothing. Like if any of you
mm.
seen Duck Amuck, which is one of those cartoons by Chuck Jones that has Daffy being tormented by a giant paintbrush. Um,
I can't
Daffy,
believe that you actually remember the name of the cartoon. That's
right?
incredible, Jonas.
Thank you. Um, but Daffy spends most of that cartoon in a void. I think they draw a few environments,
Mm,
but for the most part, he's just in the middle of nowhere. Where even though it's literally nothing, it becomes a design element because it's the lack of any context that he's up against. He's antagonistic against the void around him, which is sort of existential. Um, but yeah,
I'm crying thinking about a void.
but yeah, no, an environment can be as little as one object. So like here's an old timey Victorian street lamp. The squirrel staring at it. I'm like, what's that?
Mm,
So there's the environment, and this immediately establishes a sort of relationship.
absolutely.
Why is the squirrel looking at that? Um, or
Oh, we have to talk. We have a raiding party of 11 coming in.
oh,
Thank you very much, Ian King.
hello, Yin King.
Go ahead.
Thanks for the raid. Um, so the squirrel's got the protective pose. They're protecting them out, but like it's very different if you were gonna do say like sort of like maybe they're in the city. They're trying to
Mm,
they're surrounded by traffic. They're worried that they're protecting the net from the pedestrians, or
mm,
that gives you one kind of vibe immediately. Um, or maybe it's this Tolkien-esque, hold on, this Tolkien-esque setting of mountains and castles and
Mm.
epic skies and whatnot. You know,
And it doesn't need to be a lot.
right?
These are just a few lines that get this idea
Yeah.
through.
Or maybe it's it's the future. Like another planet. The ringed moon in the sky and
Mm.
the Death Star and you know
TM.
it's like you immediately have this sense of scale. Like this character feels different in any of these environments.
Mm.
You're instantly thinking. One of the first questions you ask is, "What are they doing there? What why is
Mm.
why is this little squirrel in space? You know,
And the relationship between that environment, this isn't a massive giant squirrel in space. This is a small
yeah,
creature in this massive environment.
right. And shadow and light comes into play. Just like
Mm.
the line work on the character and the form on the character matters. The line, the surroundings also matter. Like in this case, the blackness, the void. We're back to the void. Um, it's like this gives an immediate feeling. Or we could make it like a sunny day.
Yeah.
Maybe since it's an alien world, we could make the sky green or something. Like.
And I'm going to add that on this here. I'm just going to kind of, play around with a few different,
Mm,
lighting angles, even on something, like a pinup style. It
yeah.
makes a massive difference.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And are the shadows long? Hold on, let me more tool. Are the shadows
Mm.
long? Are they short? Are they are they visible? Are they diffuse? These are sort of like
Mm.
sometimes this will be guided by the commission or the assignment, and you don't have a lot of room to play around. Other times, absolutely play around. Do a few studies, try a few things. Don't be afraid to
Mm.
experiment a bit and see what works. Um, but anyway, what
And
else?
make lots of mistakes,
Yeah.
be open to trying something that you're not comfortable with.
Hmm.
And like, it was interesting because after our discussion I thought, okay, I'm going to add in this little wrench in the corner here, and that's going to show us that
Yeah.
there's a little interplay. This isn't just, a fatale, femme
Yeah.
fatale. This is a character who's trying to do something. She's picking up something that's fallen down.
Right. And then you want
She's
good.
Go ahead.
And then you could you want to start asking the questions like is that ranch hers? Is it something
Mm.
did she is it something what she can use it for? Does she need to fix
Mm.
something? Is this her job? Did she steal it? You know.
And yeah, exactly. Well, that's what I was just going to say is if we put some really, I'm just kind of, throwing some deep multiplied, lights on here of shadow. This looks immediately a lot more ominous than kind of what it was before, isn't it?
Yeah. And just touching on outfits briefly, like you've got her in kind of like a dress, but like what if,
Oh, these are overalls. These
oh,
are
oh,
overalls.
the
Yeah.
overalls aside, and see.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, you've got her in like coveralls, but what if you had her in something, like what would be another, like a tux or something, like
Yeah.
or a bikini
Absolutely.
or a ballroom,
Absolutely. Like, yes, a ballroom gown,
yeah,
and she's picking up a
and
wrench.
she's
That's
picking up a
very,
wrench.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like you immediately have a story here.
And we have that, and you don't need a lot of elements for that. Somebody was complimenting your Rocking Wolf was saying about your character pulling back that bow and arrow. There's an incredible amount being said with very few props, very few. You didn't have to draw a massive Bob Ross landscape behind him to get the idea, and the interplay of that light and shadow. That's massively important. So we've got our character over here, and we've got this kind of hard light coming down,
Yeah,
and again, that gives this idea of vulnerability. She's stealing this,
yeah.
right? It looks a lot more kind of naughty, from a different perspective, versus, let's try an uplight.
And
That's an incredible ballroom wrench picture.
um
Oh.
but and the great thing is there are so many permutations that you can play
Mm.
with, and like the sky is really the limit, with this stuff. How are we on time? Do we need to move on?
We have 2 minutes, and I think we're doing actually pretty well.
Um,
Maybe we can open up for
Q and
questions
A.
after this.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So basically, this is a general overview of the different kinds of, if you're getting a sense, the important thing here is to just not limit, not constrain your ideas too much because you have the parameters of the design of the character usually. And sometimes you have, specifics for the assignment, goals that you're
Mm,
intended to follow. And sometimes there are also greater style rules depending on the kind of environment you're, I mean, the kind of assignment that you're doing. But
And that's the thing is, especially like you said, I think this is really important if you're taking commissions and you have somebody saying, "Oh, something's not quite right." Ask about the character's personality. Get some more
yeah,
interest. How can you play that in there? Because a lot of people, they might not have a visual database like you have to be able to, use language to explain what they're trying to make. They might just see something and go, "Oh, like this," or like that.
um, but yeah, and yeah, and sometimes what you have to do, you have to kind of figure it out. Like you have to look at other references
Mm,
of the character and just kind of glean the intent. And
absolutely.
it's difficult, it's just you are sometimes called upon to do more work than you might think you need to,
Yeah.
and that is something where if you're making this like your job, then you really have to start accounting for that. Like you need to just like
Mm,
use an app like Toggle or even just a timer to kind of figure out, take notes and figure out what takes you, how long it takes you, when you're starting to run into like unexpected delays, and just
mm,
figure out like, okay, this is my process for this because everyone's
mm.
process is a little bit different for this sort of
And
thing.
think about maybe what you might want to charge for that as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's that's the other
Yeah.
because
That's
artists,
important.
yeah, artists will consistently undercharge themselves,
Uh-huh.
and it's I know a lot about this, um, because it has been a struggle to kind of like really understand. I know how long it takes me to draw something under ideal circumstances when nothing is going wrong, everything's coming out the way I want it to,
Mm.
and the customer has no complaints. And if only it was always like that. Um, but I've learned to adjust and create estimates that are more realistic, more driven by contingencies and possible permutations. Um,
Mm.
and I know I know what will jam me up and how to kind of like diagnose and fix it. A lot of the principles that I've outlined here are steps I will redouble back on as needed and just go through them and really kind of like put more thought into them. The first pass is always quick because it has to be. It
Mm.
has to be like this.
You need to think of it like a rough draft.
Right, right.
Anything,
Yeah.
is just your first
Yeah,
attempt.
yeah. And animators are encouraged to make lots of studies if there's time,
Mm.
try different things, make little thumbnails. Sometimes you can have like 10, 20 different riffs on the same basic concept. We actually had an art assignment like that in one class where it was something simple like a bowl of fruit. And the teacher was like, okay, give me 10 sketches of this bowl of fruit, and I want everyone to feel different, completely different. Like, make the bowl of fruit angry. It's like,
Mm.
um, but anyway, uh, I think this might be a good time to open up for some questions on the floor if
I
anyone
think you're
has
absolutely bang on. I was just double checking on our timing. Well done.
one. So, does anyone have any questions about anything I have, anything we have outlined here?
And Pyrocat was just saying, I do this. It's very helpful to figure out how long things take. Yeah, do time yourself. Make sure you're watching that. That you're not charging, £5 for a piece of work that takes 50 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So, does anybody have anything? If nobody has anything, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit, Jonas. Okay.
Please.
So, let's think about this. Okay. So if we have, let's try you making a different characters. What are some great ways to practice f
FP,
for peeing for
FP.
peeing? Absolutely. What are some great ways? Let's
Some
go ahead and
great
answer Boyd's
ways.
question.
That's a really good question. Um, well, as far as one that I actually like, someone taught me, and then I had to like really like get used to it and appreciating the value of it. Is you get like
Mm.
a full size mirror. Um, don't put it like right next to your workspace because then you'll be noticing it. You'll be, it'll be distracting you.
Yeah,
But
that's
like,
that's a lot.
yeah, but put it nearby. I have one like it's about, it's on the other side of the room from my desk, so I can, I can
Mm.
turn around and see it. Um, it's a, it's full length mirror, and you just try to do the actual form in the reflection, and you're gonna feel
Mm.
sharply self conscious at first,
Yes. Yes.
and it takes a while to get over that because it's hard to not look at that and see you versus what you're trying to convey. But
Mm.
one thing that it's really good for is grounding a pose. Because
Mm.
there's a way of drawing something where it will be correctly, it'll feel like it really is, reflecting gravity. And then it's possible to
Mm.
skew this so that it feels unbalanced. And that has a lot to do with whether or not that pose is actually possible to sustain in real life. You know,
Mm.
um, there is, obviously there are some poses where they're dynamic. Like if you're falling, it's going to look unbalanced. But a standing pose with at least 1 foot on the ground has to look like it can happen in real life. So
Mm.
that will, just check and see if that pose is actually possible. If it's not, then you need to start rethinking the form and the posture.
Because that will be something that, especially, and this is, from my kind of more traditional artwork background,
Mm-hmm.
if you're working, you'll see that very quickly. Your audience and your, whoever's commissioned you, or just doing it for yourself, it will look really wrong. And if you realize that there isn't actual weight for that to be held on,
Mm-hmm.
and if you are looking for a piece that is kind of flying or flight, look for the references online. We're really blessed in the fact that we're not like we're not like the grand masters of the Renaissance. We can we
Yeah,
can
yeah.
look up any image
Mm-hmm.
uh at all on the internet.
Yeah.
um and another thing with what you're saying about mirrors, what's incredibly, if you ever watch any of the old videos of them, of the animators, in Disney,
Mm-hmm.
they would just have a facial expression, a mirror on their desk
Mm-hmm.
for facial expressions, constantly drawing from it. I know, again, I'm going to shout her out. Caitlin Vilbrandt for Tamberlane does this quite often.
Mm-hmm.
She used to leave her webcam on back in the day when we were learning, and just make really funny expressions, or be like, even like we were talking about the films as well. Watch these films. Is there a character that you just love? Take that, that look that they have, something that's really iconic. Make it in your own style. Make your own character do it.
Mm-hmm. Regarding facial expressions, which are, the biggest component of emotions, um,
Mm.
this one way is to really get this right is to actually do a little bit of technical study. You don't need to
Mm.
know like what they're called or where they, all the little details. But what you do need to know is how these will move, like the pinch points for different emotions.
Absolutely.
One of the best ways to show consternation is with the brow knitting, where these muscles
Mm.
kind of converge, like they're trying to just pinch together at the bridge of the nose, like they're really just
Mm.
um
Mm.
um or
And be
also
careful with that as well. What I often find is people who are making a young character, babies, and that, what they'll do is they'll put too many lines in the face,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that will actually, stop the. But again, that is that, incredible cats don't dance reference. If you had a really sweet looking character, if you had Winnie the Pooh with this look on their face,
Yeah,
there's a big push and pull there that tells a story.
yeah, yeah, and it's a squirrel. But
Here's Rocking Wolf makes a really good point, and actually, this is covered in the James Gurney book as
Hmm?
well. Using action figures for
Oh
posing helps
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I have like an old school armature figurine on my desk,
Mm.
which it's pretty much decoration at this point. I never use it, um, but it's there.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are also some great applications. If you happen to have an iPad, check out ArtPose, which is a really good one. If you
Mm.
have an Android device or an iPad, you can check out Handy, which is another fantastic little
I've
app.
never heard of that. What's handy?
Handy's it's more for it's not so much for pose. Well, I mean it does like hand poses.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah, that's useful.
yeah, it's an art reference application that you can pull up like hands, feet, heads, and do some limited posing. It's more for
Mm.
like understanding forms in that case, but it's a great little app to check out.
And with that, that reminds me what you said that you wanted to get back to it. Can we circle back around? Can you show us how to use on Clip Studio Paint, which is again one of, the cheapest programs out there. If you could show us how to use the 3D characters.
Right, let me pull those up right now. I have them here in my copious library of things I downloaded once and never used again. Hang on a second.
Uh, and
Let's.
PyroCap Production says a good resource to help with gesture drawings and posing is the adorkastock.com/sketch.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that
That's
looks fantastic.
that's
Yeah.
another really good one. Yeah.
Mm.
So here we've got the default female mannequin. Let me just pull on a little bit. There we go.
And the neat thing about these mannequins is actually, you can make them heavier, you can make them thinner. And again, we were talking about on, before these really, really dynamic poses. Um, you can really
Oops.
illustrate that very easily. And again, this is very hard to do if you can't see it in your head. But use this, use yourself, like Jonas was saying. Mirrors are your friend.
Yeah.
That's the first and only time in my life I'm ever going to say that. Ah,
um. So let me. I'm just making the pose a little bit more natural because
yeah,
the
absolutely.
only
And you
time.
can download on their assets as well. You can download
Hmm?
poses and characters
Hmm?
and move them around through space.
Um. So it has a couple of different articulations. Like right here, you can pull up the. It's got some basic points that do like large scale movement. You can
Mm,
also, if you click on an individual point, you can also do like simple range of motion stuff for just like a particular limb or like even a forelimb. You could even get in there and do the fingers if you wanted to.
mm,
I'm not really going for any particular kind of pose right now. I'm just sort of playing around with it. Normally, it restricts it to ranges of motion that would be considered natural, so you can see all the different axes are like they're only partial
mm.
axes. It won't let you like bend the arms backwards or anything. I think there's a way to shut that off and actually have the limbs going in horrible.
But it's quite helpful, I think, especially if you're just kind of,
Yeah,
trying to get your anatomy brain on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it can be, it's a little tedious because it takes a while to get a pose to look natural. But
Mm, mm,
I
mm,
can also show a couple of quick little tricks. Like one thing you see a lot in classical art is contrapposto, where it's sort of like
mm,
emphasizing the kind of askew feeling. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rotate one axis on this. Oh, that's the whole body. Hold on.
mm. And you see it especially actually contrapposta. I think Sixel was talking about it last year. Is that you have the hips are juxtaposed to the shoulders,
Right.
and the kind of if you push that contrapposta, if you really push that, it can read very differently. So for example, this character we were talking about, kind of our lines of gesture,
Mm-hmm.
has a bit of a natural kind of S character and S characteristic to her, and that again kind of leads to this more femme fatale look.
Yeah.
I've added a little bit of a color dodge on here as well, just to show, the light coming on the face
Oh
gives a very
yeah.
different feeling. Um, Versus, these kind of dark shadows that we were having before. This light on the face and shading it from the back gives an entirely different feel to this artwork piece. Than the other one. And then somebody said, Rocking Wolf says, just remember when using a mirror, draw opposite of what you are
Yeah, yeah,
seeing.
yes, yeah.
Here we have Void has a question,
Hmm?
personal one for the both of you.
Hmm?
What are your most favorite things slash subjects to draw? Oh, good question.
You go first.
Oh, sugar, I was gonna say for you to go first. Darn it. Oh, criminy. Okay. Really, what I love drawing is I love drawing portraiture. Portraiture is my bread and butter. It is what I like live for. Again, kind of, real strong realism is something that I absolutely adore, and I'm trying to kind of add that to this cartoony style. I like challenges. I really like to challenge myself, and then I give up halfway through and I don't finish it. But I'm getting better at finishing. Sorry, what about you, Jonas?
It's funny because like even though I've made my career drawing characters, I actually
Mm.
really enjoy drawing abstract forms, or even
Oh, really?
semi-abstract forms. Like let me,
Oh,
I'm
interesting.
gonna quickly page through this a minute because you'll notice that on these two little wingets that P had used for my examples here for environment, and even these are almost abstract environments. You've got the top
Mm.
character using a bow and arrow, and the bow's got it's a burning arrow, so there's this trail of stylized smoke, and then the other character down here with the bikini, she's standing in waves, but I made the waves kind of again kind of semi-abstract and swirly because I really enjoy forms like
Mm.
this where it you know what it is, but it has this kind of like sort of like almost unreal vibe to it that makes it that sort of pops it
Mm.
out from the environment and makes it almost its own thing, almost like its own
Yeah, you
character.
can see that in both of those.
Um,
It's really beautiful.
my mother was an anthropology degree, and I grew up. She had all these masks in the house all the time, on
Mm.
the walls. Masks from
Not spooky at all. Not possessed or haunted.
I hope not. But no, she'd have like Aztec masks, making these,
Mm.
these interesting faces, and like African masks, all of which,
Mm.
they would use, very like powerful abstract shapes, to form the faces. And I just grew
Cozy
up.
Potato says ethereal is the vibe I get. I think probably referring to those flames and or like, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate
Mhm.
that. Um, and also, my dad's Chinese, and there were, he bought like these like Chinese story, these Chinese storybooks where like there is a particular style for clouds in those that's traditional, where it's like they kind of have these little swirlies,
Mm.
and I was always very enamored with
Yeah,
that. You can,
stunning.
I try to make forms like that whenever possible, just make them all kind of like swirly. This is also present in animation, especially in like the counterculture era, the 1960s when
Mm.
like Chuck Jones was really coming into his own. And that's
Mm.
you'll see a lot of that stuff in.
Yellow Submarine.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What they would do is they would usually throw like a rainbow on it, and there you go.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, why not?
Why not?
Makes a better trip. Um,
Oh, brilliant.
but
Fantastic.
yeah, and all of that stuff just kind of informed me growing up.
Mm.
Um, um,
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And again, you can take these elements and add them to what we were just talking about. That would be an incredible background to work on top of.
mhm.
And that would get, and you've not done a lot there. We're
I
not
know.
talking about hours and hours of work to render an environment.
um, yeah, I mean, well, I mean, it kind of like plays in what I said earlier, where like an environment doesn't have to be lush and complete. It can be, and I
Mm.
have nothing but respect for artists who do that. Absolutely, like like there
And
are
awe.
artists. One of my one of my all time favorites is Michael Whalen. Let me see if I can find an example of his work. Um, there's he did the original illustrations for Stephen King's The Dark Tower back in the day.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah,
like one picture I'm trying to find it where well, but I mean you can just you can Google. I can't find the one I'm looking for, but like he would do stuff like that where the environment is just it's both lush and it's its own thing. It is it's a character unto itself. And
and I think we can say that in like James Gurney as well,
oh yeah,
where
absolutely.
that's,
Yeah, Gurney
you
is
know,
another incredible example, definitely.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I
it's
think
beautiful.
you know the experienced artist knows that there's an interplay between both
Mm,
realism and form. The two can dovetail. They can fight with each other. They can coincide.
mm.
They're as much tools to play with as character design and the actual medium that you're using.
Mm.
Um,
And that's another good point. What you talk about medium is, try out of your comfort zone. I talked about this last year at the conference or last spring. Try real, try real media. Try if you're stuck in something, do something that's so far out of your safe zone that it will take you out of that you know that that artist block that you might have.
yeah,
Something that's really amorphous to that. Yeah.
I
Go on.
no, I was just gonna say like I I will. I think I will eventually. Like recently, I got an itch to try colored pencil
The
stuff.
gentle mother tone of maybe Jonas. Oh, bless you.
um, I guess part of the reason I hesitate, and and this is one instance where like you don't, this is just me, is that
Mm.
it's expensive. It can
Yeah,
get
oh,
kind
for
of
sure.
expensive.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. And I think, this is when you can allow yourself and say, you know what, I might just get that 25 pound, pack of, say Arteza products
Hmm.
and again, I think, sorry, I've got
Hmm? Hello?
sorry, the things like ahuhu markers are incredibly price effective
Hmm.
to get something for what you want. But again, you don't need to limit yourself. Actually, doing this, don't get the packet that's 300 colors, even though they look fabulous, but it's really expensive. Get 5 colors.
Yeah,
Try it.
yeah, yeah,
You,
and always make sure when you're experimenting, when you're discovering how it works, don't do it on the actual piece. You know, I'm not saying that
Now,
like
I totally disagree with that. I think
really
you should.
okay, all right, fine,
I
fair enough.
completely. I'm like, no, no, no. Go for it. Every single thing you make, you should make it a learning experience. And just a quick
Mm,
tap in with our audience here.
mm,
We say, wish more art. Jag Rabbit says, I wish more artists would insist on being paid for
yeah.
something other than exposure. I think that's massively, massively true. I think we kind of need to join together, especially kind of now with what what's happening. And then Mythic says, "Oh, who doesn't love saying a hoo hoo?" And you never know when you're going to need one of those weird 300 colors. Absolutely. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead. So, what do you think about my disagreement with that?
It is a completely valid approach, absolutely. Um,
It's
I,
true.
I tend to. I mean, this is it I only again, this is just me. This has been only been my experience, and I am not.
I want to hear it.
Well, I mean, I know that like I am informed by the fact that I'm. I always have Control Z at ready. You know, ready
Yeah.
hand. It's sort of like so I know that like when I can't do that, I get frustrated. But again, like
Mm.
don't
And
listen to.
that's something. It's interesting. I once did a course with a very old school cartoonist. He was very very old school, and he would everything wouldn't be done digitally, and you'd copy it on the photocopier, and you'd bring it up or bring it down on the photocopier, and he'd always say draw big. But one of
Yeah.
the things he always said, try with ink, go in
Oh,
with ink.
I
And I can hear that groan
I
from Jonas. I can
oh,
hear that groan. I hear that groan in my students
I can.
so many times. But challenge yourself with something totally different. You'll be surprised.
No,
I
you're
will.
you're you're right. Listen to Peahead, not me.
I'm the mom like that tells you like what you're supposed to do, but Jonas is what you actually do.
um, but yeah, no, it's I mean, it is good to be fearless. Um, it is.
And I think you've got to have that kind of ability to jump with the right person. I wouldn't do that for a commission for somebody that you don't know very well.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, um, basically, do it. Like. Anyway,
Hey, this is supposed to be
all right.
PG related.
Anyway,
But yeah, I think absolutely. Try. I just brought up a piece that I was working on. This was really to study. Obviously, it was a realism study, but it was also to study I'm obsessed with him. I'm sorry, James Gurney. I'm going to bring him up
Oh
again
yeah, yeah.
because Mythics was talking about it with the reflection, an alternate reflection in another area.
Hmm.
Oh, really quick, Rabbits. I watched my buddy Ali attack paper canvas at the time with a colored pencil he wants, and some use forms of black magic in order to erase all small mistakes and he decides to make with any color amount he wants. It's mystifying. There are hints, online about how to do that. But again, make the mistakes. Make them. Just try, Sorry. Motivational, scale it back. Scale it back. Anyway.
I'd like to take a minute to do some uh, book title
Yeah,
recommendations.
don't
Unf-
forget that.
Unfortunately, I didn't have time to assemble a proper list, so what you'll probably have to do is go back and watch the VOD and just, take some notes for what I'm
What
saying.
I can do is I can make a live slide on here and add what you're saying, and
Oh,
I'll
okay.
probably spell it correctly. But yeah, let's
Let
try that.
me. Okay,
Here, I'll add that to the last one here.
very
There we go.
good. All right, I am on that slide. Go ahead. So James Gurney,
Yeah,
Color and Light.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, pretty much everything he's done. Imaginative Realism, another one by James Gurney that's really good.
Yeah.
Um, what else? Pretty much everything by Will Eisner, because he was the artist who did The Spirit and a number of really incredible
Mm.
graphic novels. He talks a lot about visual storytelling. I think one of his books is just called Visual Storytelling. Um, so he's a really good one.
Oh, you said visual
Yeah,
storytelling.
visual storytelling. But I mean, everything he does is worth studying. He's done
Mm.
graphic novels like Contract with God. Just he's incredible. Rudolf Arnheim.
Oh
He's
gosh, you're not giving me the easy names to spell here, are
that's
you?
Rudolf Arnheim.
Arnhe.
Yeah,
Oh, Heim. Yeah.
Rudolf
Okay.
Arnheim. He has fair warning. His stuff is really dry by modern standards. He was around in
You're
the
selling it.
yeah. I mean, I know. I say that because like he was around in the 1950s and it's very
Ah,
much
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
a dry lecture stuff. But it's still his book is called Art and Visual Perception, and what he has to say, if you can get past how just like crisp and academic it is, it's really good. Yeah.
Mm.
Um.
And actually, you bring up the old school. Oh, what's his name? We were just talking Hogarth.
Oh
What's
yeah,
his
Bern
name?
Hogarth. Yeah.
Bern Hogarth.
Bern Hogarth. That's BRN.
Everything he makes.
Yeah, it's BRN
Sorry.
E. B.
Well, I told you I would spell it.
Uh,
Burne.
e.
Okay, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Otherwise, it's like a burning
Um.
fire.
Yeah, he's got there's about 5 or 6 by him. Dynamic light and shade,
Mm.
drawing dynamic limbs, dynamic drapery, dynamic bow ties. He's
Everything dynamic,
it's all dynamic.
everything
Yeah,
dynamic
yeah,
hands. He's incredible, and
yeah.
he's an old school realist. You'll look at him and go, why the heck have you no, read the books, just read them. Just you can find a lot of them online as well, transcribed. So
Let's see. Tom Bancroft, Bancroft. He has two that are very good. Creating
mhm.
characters with personality, and also character mentor. Um, yeah. Tom is a veteran Disney animator. He had a huge role in a lot of the '90s Disney Renaissance
Mm.
movies. Like, he worked on
What was
Aladdin.
the second title again? Sorry,
Oh,
Jonas.
character mentor. Yeah.
Okay.
Really exceptional stuff as far as just like character design and in a lot of the
Mm.
principles that I'm talking about. He goes into them in much greater depth. And he's just he's a really smart guy. He's a really nice guy too. I knew him like back in the day, like when I was on DeviantArt. Um, a million years ago in the 2000s. Um,
Yeah,
and he's one of twins, and his twin brother Tony also worked on a bunch of Disney films.
that's crazy.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
crazy.
Um, what else? What other?
Oh, you know what? Actually, without books, why don't we recommend who were you just mentioning? That website. That's so good.
Well, the Proco.com.
Yes, Proco.
Proco.com is very good. That's run by Stan Prokopenko.
It's
That
amazing.
he mostly deals with anatomy and rendering
Mm,
finite, but he does get into some of the other principles like character design and
yeah,
attitude
yeah.
and whatnot. Absolutely worth checking out. He has like it's freemium. He has like a premium course. It's absolutely worth it. Just trust
But
me.
he
It's
also but saying that he has a lot of really good things on YouTube as well.
he
He has
does.
a lot of good
Yeah,
material on YouTube as well. If you don't want to
volumes.
pay for it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
volumes of it. What other sites would I recommend? I'm going through my bookmarks. Um, Line of Action is very good, just for
Yes, line of action. Sixel's been using that, I think,
mhm.
this entire time when she's been doing her gesture
Yeah,
stuff.
great for. I mean, they have whole sections for figures, animals, hands and feet,
Mm.
expressions, and environments,
And landscapes.
and landscapes. Yeah,
Or they have landscapes, but you have to pay for it. But
yeah,
there's other ones out there that you
yeah.
don't. Sorry.
But it's again absolutely worth it, and
Great website. Yeah.
that's the resources there are they're not inexhaustible, but they will last you a long
Mm.
time.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure, for sure.
let's see.
And also, don't be afraid if you have an artist that you really enjoy, that you really like their style, go ahead and copy them. That sounds crazy, but don't sell it as your own. Do a piece of their artwork just as a study.
Mm-hmm.
Say, I'm going to really try and do this on that. And you'll be surprised how much you actually start making it into your own character before you even know it. Take from what look at who you like, or even contact the artist, especially in days and age, now's days and age, and say, who do you recommend? Who inspires you?
Oh, I'm
It's a really
sending
good way
you
to
one
express
more link
yourself. Oh, oh,
right here.
oh,
The Etherington brothers. I hope I'm saying that right.
oh
Um,
my goodness.
they run a
Oh,
blog,
okay.
and I think it's also a book now called How to Think When You Draw, and they cover
Nice.
a lot of stuff, like a very diverse range of things that both intersect with this and go beyond it. Because you've
Mm,
probably seen their work because they they employ very strong line art that feels very sort of mid 20th century, um,
mm.
and absolutely worth checking out. Just a multitude of topics and tips and whatnot. And
Mythic says she remembers that series.
yes,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Brilliant.
But
Brilliant.
excuse me. I think we've gosh, I think
We've
we've
exhausted it.
yeah.
I think we've covered how to FPEE on a
Yeah.
daily basis.
um
Well, I just want to say thank you so much, Jonas. Everybody, I think I'm speaking for everybody. It's such a joy to always hear you give a presentation. You have such a wealth of experience and knowledge behind you. So we really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you so much for providing an invaluable sense of just structure and organization to all of this. I definitely feel like, you know, you've sort of, like, I feel like this time things felt a lot more relaxed and organized.
It's
And
hard. Yeah. Presenting information is really hard, but it's amazing. And thank you, Mythix. Mythix says thank you to the both of you. That's really kind. We have a really good showing today, and I want to make sure that you guys have a look for us. Can you remind us what is your Twitch stream to follow?
oh, my Twitch stream,
Yeah.
it's Jonas does stuff.
Mm,
It's somewhat seldom used at the moment just because I've been
we're
busy.
gonna change that, aren't we?
Yeah, I've been very busy trying to whittle down my queue, and also most of the streaming I do is as a co-host for my friend Rick's stream. I'm one
Mm.
of the I'm one of the his rotating stable of co-hosts known as the Rude Crew. Um, he's over at Rick P Griffin on Twitch. If you
Mm.
tune into his streams, just be aware that sometimes we do get a little PG-13 just because we're a fun
Fantastic. And
bunch
I'm
of
just gonna.
what
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say because we're a fun bunch of lads. Um,
Very much lad energy,
yeah,
very
yeah.
much lad energy.
Hmm.
And I just wanted to say, I've just got Peahead Inc. On Twitch. You can find me. I've just made a new YouTube that has all of my tutorial videos on there at Peahead Inc. Um, Look it up on YouTube anywhere there. And I'm hoping to be doing a lot more art streams, maybe with some co-hosts who are exceptionally talented at certain times. And we're really going to be pushing out some more education here and working together, hopefully in the future here more.
Yeah, yeah. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Me too. Me
Okay.
too. Thank you guys. Thank you. Have a lovely day and well done, Vanilla and all of the Cozy Con crew, Gunny and Waffle. You've done an incredible job. So thank you guys so much. And Tamron as well. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
big shout out to
So
all the CozyCon folks for being so accommodating and helpful. It's just been amazing.
honestly,
Really looking forward to next time.
yes,
And
absolutely.
thanks all y'all for hanging out.
Thank you guys
It's
so
been
much.
fantastic. All right, they
Absolutely.
are ready for us to finish up, so I'm going to go
All
ahead
right. We'll be
and
wrapping it up. Thanks again, guys. Bye
all right,
bye.
bye bye.